Hi everyone, it's Liz here and I hope you're having a super week. Now, recently on the Facebook Lives, I've been talking about phonemes, which are the tiny units of sound that children need to know because they're what they actually use every time they speak a word in the English language. But they are also the code. They are the sound code of the English language. So today I want to talk to you about a topic which is 26 letters. They are the 26 letters of the alphabet. The 46 sounds, which are those phonemes that I've been talking to you about, but the 1200 different ways to spell them. And this is what makes the English language so tricky to learn, because it's not logical, and children do like logical. There are a lot of logical elements to it, but there really isn't enough to make it cut and dry for children who are struggling with it. We all know that some children pick it up super fast, but other children don't. So did you know that when your child first started school, one of the first things they learnt was the 26 letter symbols of the alphabet? They literally start with A, B, C, D, and they're all around the classroom walls, and they start to learn those symbols. They invariably learn the capital letters first, which I don't think is overly helpful, because I think it would be better if they learned the lowercase letter first and the capital second. But really, it's much of a muchness. That's just a preference for me. So they learnt those 26 letter symbols of the alphabet, but then they had to master the code of relating those to the 46 sounds and 1200 or more different ways that they can spell those 46 sounds and English words. It sounds hard, doesn't it? Well, it is. And I didn't even know that when I left university, that there are more than 1200 ways to spell 46 sounds. And I remember when I went to a lecture on this, I was like, oh, aha moment. Now I know why. And what's more, the number of ways to spell these sounds are increasing. And this is because new words are being made up every day. There have been 1,000 or more new words added to the Oxford English Dictionary already this year. There are variations on words that we make all the time for branding and marketing. Now, you'll all know the airline Qantas, for example, and Qantas is a qu sound, but it has no U after it, which makes that qu or that Q say the k sound. It should be Qantas with a Q with no U after it. So there you go. So Qantas is an example of a spelling that really doesn't follow the rules of the English language. Everybody is texting because it's a very fast way to communicate. And with texting, we break the rules constantly. So because we type in shorthand, so tomorrow becomes tomoz, please comes pluz, said in a very weird Russian accent. And people who learn to read easily still wonder what all the fuss is about. Really? Reading is a code. And according to UK dyslexia expert Professor John Stein, it is one of the most difficult codes our brain will ever have to encounter. It's a complex code of 26 symbols, graphic letter symbols, 46 sounds, and more than 1200 different spellings. And as I said to you, it's increasing. So I teach people about the code when I teach the speech to spelling code. And the code for all of the people out there in teaching land is called Phonics. Now, I can see you're probably starting to understand that if Phonics is taught to your child logically and systematically in a specific order with plenty of practice, it is a lot easier than perhaps throwing lots of words at them as you would in perhaps more of a sight word or a whole word learning approach, and just expecting them to absorb all the learning that's actually tucked inside each word. Because it's actually really hard to learn to read and spell for many children. It's not like learning to speak. You see, speaking's innate. It's something that we were actually born with the ability to begin to do. Reading is something that is man-made, and it's something that needs to be taught. But the way it's taught in schools doesn't work for about 30% of the children there. You will find about 25 to 30% of children in our schools will be actually struggling with the learning of reading. So let's say your child's not learning as well as the others. And I'm guessing if you're on my page, then you maybe have a child that's in this category. Perhaps they have trouble with their pronunciation. They may have apraxia of speech where they go to pronounce the word and it doesn't come out. They might have a problem remembering how words look. So in other words, putting a visual form into their long-term memory. They might have trouble identifying which sounds are used for different groups of letters, because remember, there are patterns, but you've got to remember all the patterns. They may not know how to break words down into syllables. They may hear the sounds in words and say them and read them, but not really be able to hear the sounds when they're actually writing them out or reading them out. Some children struggle with hearing sounds. Maybe they have a visual processing difficulty and they suffer from distortions of text, and they might rub their eyes, experience reading fatigue or eye fatigue. They might have words that flip, letters that flip or distort or shudder on the page. Now, if one of these things has been occurring throughout your child's school time, there's a good chance they're going to have lots of gaps in their learning. And this is where the skills of your child's teacher are so important. The problem is that most of our teachers aren't trained to identify children who have specific learning difficulties when it comes to reading or spelling. And really, they often struggle with enough time in their day to actually give each child an individual approach and to help each child specifically. So if you have a child that is falling behind because they've got gaps in their learning, then I want to give you an option, and that is to go and have a look at a webinar which I've created, and it's titled My Unusual Multisensory Teaching Method that taught my 3 struggling children to read and spell, and how your child can learn in just 10 minutes a day, because all of my children struggled with reading and spelling, and to read and spell from start to finish. And I present it in a logical and systematic way, and I allow for practice. So that's why it's so successful, because as I said to you, learning to read is difficult for approximately 30% of children, but there is a solution, and it's something that I've created, and it really does only take 10 minutes a day. The other thing that you need to know is that if you watch this webinar, it will turn you into the best support team ever, because parents with the right knowledge can work to support their children, and they can also work in a team-based approach with teachers at school, because they actually understand what teachers are doing, what they're teaching, why they're teaching it, and perhaps where there's some gaps forming, and that they can jump in and help. Because we all need to understand the code of the English language, the symbol code and the sound code, which of course is basically related to how we speak. So if you'd like to watch that webinar, please do. I'll put a link to it below this post, so you can have a look at it and see what you think. I really hope you have a super day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.